If you tore your Achilles 79 days ago, would you be back on the football field? I don't think so.
No.
Jason, probably not. We got that and so much more coming up on the Fantasy GOAT.
This is the Fantasy GOAT, sponsored by Casablanca Resort and Casino, like Vegas used to be.
Welcome, kids, to the Fantasy GOAT. We hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm Mike Davis. That's Jason Feinberg. Jason, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was great, and it was football related. I went up to Detroit, get that bucket list checked off to go to a Thanksgiving football game, and I watched a lot of my players on Detroit tank.
Yes, not a good scene.
Not a good scene, but it was a fun trip, though.
Yes, it's one of those memorable things to go see a game.
On Thanksgiving.
On Thanksgiving. Now you can see we got all the holiday Christmas gear in session, so we're moving along. Right now, though, this week, the big news everybody's talking about, Aaron Rodgers. 79 days ago, this guy tore his Achilles, okay? 11 weeks since surgery, and now head coach Robert Saleh is saying he is cleared for functional football activity. Jason, Aaron Rodgers turns 40 this weekend. I'm 31. I make old man noises when I sit down on the couch.
Right.
How old are you, and how could you return from an Achilles injury at this age?
Well, I'm way older than him and you, and I do play sports, but I haven't. But I remember when my dad tore his Achilles, and it took him so long just to jog again, and the stretching that he had to do. I can't believe. But is he really going to? I mean, he just really wants the attention. Aaron Rodgers wants attention.
They are not really in playoff contention.
And
they lost 4 games in a row. They're 4-7. Why is he doing this?
Yeah, I don't know. Defying medicine, I guess, because he's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, but listen, I would love to see what happens with that. That's one of the big things. The other big thing is Pittsburgh. They shipped off Matt Canada to Canada. They they haven't in 58 games had over 400 yards of total offense. They ship him off to Canada. The first week back, boom, over 400 yards. A really good display. Of course, Pat Freiermuth had a big game. What did this mean for you and your fantasy teams?
It didn't mean a whole lot because even though they went over 400 yards, they only still scored 16 points. And Kenny Pickett distributed the ball to 8 different wide receivers. None of them, other than Freiermuth, had anything more than about 55-ish yards, no touchdowns. So from a fantasy perspective, it didn't do a whole lot except for maybe Najee.
Right, Najee is on the up and up.
Yeah.
And I do like Freiermuth as a good sneaky play as we're heading into the fantasy playoffs. Let's loop in our resident Pittsburgh fan and producer, James Edward Berkman. The fourth, James, congratulations on shipping off Matt Canada to Canada. What do you think about this display from last weekend?
Yeah, no, so it's really interesting. Canada was out ahead of that Week 12 matchup ahead of Cincinnati. Running backs coach Eddie Faulkner took over as interim. Offensive coordinator Mike Sullivan taking over the bulk of the play calling duties. And in one game with them in charge, they broke that long streak where they hadn't had 400-plus offensive yards in 58 games. The last time that had happened, it was Week 2 of Ben Roethlisberger's second to last season. So really interesting, but they looked a lot better. Kenny Pickett might have played his best, most complete game as a Steeler, but as you guys mentioned, still not really fantasy effective. So I'm not really rushing to start any Pittsburgh pass catchers, despite Freiermuth having a really good game, or Pickett. However, Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, they've been running the football really well. Look at how they've been running the football over the past 4 games. At least 150 rushing yards over those past 4. And Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, despite splitting carries, have looked really good. You look at this graphic here. Najee's been getting slightly more carries, but Jaylen Warren's been doing more work with it. They've been averaging about, I want to say, they're both mid 15 to 20 level fantasy running backs over those past 4 games. So I'd look for that to continue as they move forward with this new offensive regime.
Yeah, and Kenny Pickett, he's one of those quarterbacks where, play action, where if the running game is going, it helps the passing game, and that's, true for every team in the league. I do have to say, though, unlike Deontay Johnson, who doesn't even flinch when there's a fumble.
Yeah.
You know, James Edward Barrickman, the fourth, he's a good producer. If something falls on the ground, he's on it
Right.
like that. You know?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
saw that display by Deontay Johnson. That was a scary scene.
It was. It was, yeah. Again, I'm not super excited about Pittsburgh because of this, but at least they're on the right trajectory.
Well, there's another team in Pennsylvania we are all super psyched up about, and that is Philadelphia. We can say, you know, we were texting during this game, definitely the game of the year. Philadelphia, Buffalo, 37-34 victory in overtime. What can we say about this game? I mean, this is what football should be about. Two Titans at the quarterback position going back to back. And if I was just thinking, and from fantasy terms, if you have Hurts or Allen on your team, you were just loving that game.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that it was raining hard the whole time.
Yes.
So, you know, a lot of people, they may not do fantasy, but they like to bet the games and bet the totals. And you would think, oh, it's going to be raining. Let's take the under. Ha!
Right.
That didn't matter.
Crazy game, and that's what we're here for. That's what football is all about. And that leads us into our hole-in-one player of the week. And guess who it was? It was Jalen Hurts. Jalen, I mean, this guy is definitely the MVP of the league at this juncture. 200 yards, not too many passing yards, only 200 yards, but 3 TDs, 1 interception. He had another 65 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns rushing, 34.5 fantasy points. He's now QB2 through 12 weeks. And my man, Colin Cowherd, said this on his show, which I thought was really a great thing to say about the type of player Jalen Hurts is. When trailing in the second half and overtime this season, he has a 67.3 completion percentage, his touchdown to interception ratio 10-0, and his passer rating is 138.6. So this is a guy who just has the tangibles, he has the intangibles. He's the guy you want in your fantasy lineup, and he's the guy you want quarterbacking your favorite team. That's what Jalen Hurts is all about. Guys, coming up after a short break, there's another quarterback I was high on this year who's on the up and up. It's Trevor Lawrence, and we're going to be talking a little bit about him. We got more Fantasy GOAT action happening after a short break.
Before we head to break, in Week 13 of 2004, which Philly quarterback threw for 464 yards and 5 touchdowns in a win over Green Bay? He tallied 36.6 fantasy points and finished as the week's QB1. The answer after the break. Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you in Week 13 of 2004, which Philly quarterback threw for 464 yards and 5 touchdowns in a win over Green Bay? The answer, quarterback Donovan McNabb, who played for Philadelphia from 1999 to 2009.
Welcome back to the Fantasy GOAT. All right, let's kick off GOAT Vision. Jason, I'm going to start off with my dude, Trevor Lawrence. I was big on him heading into the season.
Sure.
And, you know, in Jacksonville, he really had a very disappointing start to the year, middle of the year, but now he's finally coming alive. You know, last week he had 364 yards passing, his most this season, for 24 points. The week prior, 2 weeks ago, 32 points. So he's coming up against Cincinnati. I actually like him without, having that Burrow under center. I think it's still going to be a good thing, him facing Browning. And, he's coming alive, and the team looks solid, Jacksonville.
You know what the secret is, in my opinion, is Zay Jones. I know it sounds strange, but whenever Zay Jones is in the lineup, not only does Trevor Lawrence do better, but Calvin Ridley does better, which is sort of a negative for some of the other players, including Etienne and Christian Kirk. But it does help Trevor Lawrence. So I think that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
He's back in the lineup.
I mean, he's got weapons, Etienne. He's got weapons,
Yeah.
So as we're heading into the fantasy playoffs, a guy with a plethora of options to throw to isn't a bad thing. Who are you liking?
So I'm going to continue going with the game that I was at, because I really got to see all the players up close. And man, Jordan Love, I tell you, he really impressed me to the point where, I was a Detroit fan. Not that I like Detroit, but I was there, right? I got to root for the home team. And I felt like a Detroit fan every single Thanksgiving. I'm like, oh, this is what it's like. But he started off, setting the stage with that long bomb to Christian Watson. And then from there, it just was downhill for Detroit. So He looked like Joe Montana, which is, I don't know if it was the Detroit's defense or if he's just starting to come around.
Who knows? But the guy you're not feeling is also from that game as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think Jared Goff ate his turkey before the game because his mind was not into that game. You saw, fumble and, he got sacked and he didn't get rid of the ball and you should have seen my face. If the network cameras could show, it looked like pretty much every Detroit fan every single Thanksgiving. It was just like,
it's the opposite of Taylor Swift cheering with Donna Kelce in the owner's box. For me, the guy I'm kind of down on, it's Matt Stafford. It's kind of weird. You're thinking, he just came off a game where he threw 4 touchdowns against Arizona. But, Cleveland is in Arizona. And, Jim Schwartz and that defense, they like to blitz and pressure the quarterback. And the bottom line is, I think, if Puka and Kupp are not playing at a high level, it's going to be hard for Stafford to keep this up. Last game, combined, Puka and Kupp had 7 catches for 45 yards. So I don't like that, and I especially don't like it against a tough Cleveland D. But let's head into GOAT Vision running backs this time. Now, this is funny to me, okay? Coach Arthur Smith with the I'm big on Bijan Robinson and the display he's had since prior heading into the bye and coming off the bye has been great. Here's the thing. Arthur Smith, to me, looks like that mad scientist on the sideline. And, sometimes mad scientists try to think things up too much. It's kind of like, listen, a grilled cheese sandwich, 2 pieces of bread and cheese is going to taste good. It's simple. Give Bijan Robinson the ball. He's the 8th pick in the draft. Just cook up some grilled cheese. What's so hard about that?
It's like a Looney Tunes cartoon where clearly the Roadrunner's going to win, but he has to put thumbtacks and paint an anvil and paint a tunnel that doesn't exist when he could just win.
Just hand the ball off to Bijan Robinson. This guy had 16 carries, 91 yards, a touchdown through the air, a touchdown on the ground. He's going to be, coming up. And I think because they're in contention in the Southern Division, I just feel like there's going to be a lot of options for, Bijan to get more volume. And hopefully Arthur Smith has cracked this simple code. What about you?
I am more excited about this player than I was about Thanksgiving dinner, and that is Zach Moss's back, baby. And unfortunately, it comes at Jonathan Taylor's expense, but I've held on to him in many leagues. He did great for me at the beginning of the season, and now, I think he's going to pick up where he left off. He's still, I think, statistically in the top 10, and he hasn't done anything
it's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm excited about him.
That's smart of you to hold on to him because a lot of people would drop him in leagues. Okay, and who are you not feeling so much?
Well, going back to the game I was at, Aaron Jones, just pack it up, dude. You're just ruining fantasy football leagues, by the minute. He comes in, he's one of those guys like Darren Waller who comes in and doesn't contribute anything before leaving. Whereas at least some players, like Chris Olave, at least got me, over 100 yards before he left the game.
The crazy thing is I'm low on A.J. Dillon in Green Bay as well, and he's not doing much with the opportunity, even with Aaron Jones out sometimes. So I don't love that. The guy I'm low on is just Breece Hall. This is the only bright spot of that, New York offense. And, to me, it's just a disappointing thing. And, he's facing Atlanta this week, and they're, allowing the 2nd fewest fantasy points to running backs this season. So Breece Hall, I'm not feeling him this week. He's basically had 7 and 10 carries the last couple of weeks.
Well, yeah, they don't have any quarterback that can throw the ball. So, of course, they stack the box.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. But, guys, we're just ramping up here on the Fantasy Go. We got wide receivers, we got tight ends, we got all that coming to you after a quick break.
Before we take another timeout, in Week 13 of 2012, which Oakland tight end caught 14 passes for 130 yards and 1 touchdown in a loss versus Cleveland? He totaled 26 fantasy points and finished as the week's tight end 1. The answer after the break. Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you in Week 13 of 2012, which Oakland tight end caught 14 passes for 130 yards and 1 touchdown in a loss versus Cleveland? The answer, tight end Brandon Myers, who played for Oakland from 2009 to 2012.
Welcome back, kiddos. All right, Jason, GOAT Vision, wide receivers, kick us off.
Well, this this isn't a household name, but it's somebody you can still pick up on the waiver wire, and that's Greg Dortch. As soon as Kyler Murray came back for Arizona, he found one of his main weapons, and that's Greg Dortch. Plus, it's really fun to say Dortch, when he catches or if he misses a ball.
No.
But no, he's been getting a lot of volume.
I just picked him up, and who are you also not feeling?
You know what? I think it's time for LA to consider Quentin Johnston a bust.
Yeah.
He wasn't much of a big guy in college. He just has that athletic ability, but that's not even working out right now. I think he's a bust.
Yeah, and TCU, a first-round pick. I mean, with the opportunity with Mike Williams out, he should be benefiting more, and he's just not.
Yeah.
I'm still on this A.J. Brown train. I know the past couple weeks haven't been as good as what we've expected from him. He still found the end zone last week against Buffalo, but San Francisco, a tough matchup for this team in Philadelphia. Still, San Francisco gives up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers that are wide out spread on the sideline. So I still think he's going to have a big game. And here, my last thing I want to say on wide receivers, DK Metcalf. I mean, can we just give up on this dude? I'm done with the sexiness of this guy's physique. I don't care anymore about DK Metcalf. This dude does not pay off his ADP. Tyler Lockett has more points than him. He only has 3 touchdown catches this year. He's only been over 100 yards once. I'm done with the whole DK Metcalf thing, especially as he faces Dallas. But let's kick off tight ends right now for GOAT Vision. Jason, you and I, we both like Pat Freiermuth.
He's back. He's back in a big way. And he was the only one on Pittsburgh that had more than, 5 targets. He had quite a few. I think he had 9 catches for more than 100 yards.
Yeah, season high for him. We're liking it. I'm just down on Hunter Henry when it comes to tight ends. No targets last week, and you don't like Philadelphia tight ends.
Well, there really is no tight end to choose from until Dallas Goedert gets back. But they're doing a great job without a viable fantasy-relevant tight end.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes you don't need a fantasy-relevant tight end. Guys, coming up, we're talking to Dr. Nithin Natwa. We got the breakdown on all the critical injuries you need to know. Welcome back. All right, it's time to break down some critical injuries. We got at Fantasy Docs, Dr. Nithin Natwa with us. Doc, great to be with you. Let's kick this off right with this. I mean, everybody's talking about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, just 79 days from tearing this Achilles. Can this dude actually be a medical marvel and come back and have an impact on the field?
I don't think he can, and I don't really see the reason why he's even trying to come back with them being 4-7. They're pretty much eliminated from playoff contention, so it really begs the question of who benefits from Aaron Rodgers coming back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks? And the answer is no one. So there doesn't seem to be a rational reason why he's trying to do it. And there doesn't seem to be a way that the Achilles tendon can heal that rapidly. It's not that he can't get back out there. They opened the practice window, and right now they're saying that he can go out there and throw to his receivers, which is pretty much what he's been doing in these videos already. But they aren't going to clear him for gameplay, in my opinion, because there's no benefit to it. He's not going to carry them to the playoffs. He's not going to carry them in the playoffs because they aren't going to be there. So it doesn't really make sense from a risk management perspective who would clear him for a meaningless gameplay.
Doc, we recently found out that Jonathan Taylor is going to have thumb surgery. Do you see him coming back this season?
I diagnosed it being an ulnar collateral ligament injury, which basically really affects that grip strength. We talked about it in some previous players as well, too. And they immediately opted to go for surgery, which indicates that that ligament was at least 50% torn, if not completely torn. So I'm not saying he's completely done for fantasy purposes, but I would 100% be scrambling for other options for the duration of the season.
All right. The great Dr. Nithin Natwa at Fantasy Docs. Follow him on Instagram and TikTok. Now, Jason, we take fantasy very seriously here on the Fantasy Goat. That means we got to go to Sam with our GOATCAST.
Meteorologist Sam Argier here with your Week 13 GOATCast so you can make some weather decisions on your starting lineup for fantasy this week. We've got some Sunday showers in the forecast. None of the games on Sunday looking like a soaker, but some rain will be off and on for many of the games. But most of the games too warm for snow. We're just talking plain old rain. The coldest game this weekend will be in Green Bay. No surprise there in early December on Sunday night. So let's take you out to the GOATCast future track. This is what the radar looks like like on Sunday, heading into the late morning and afternoon games. A lot of the shower activity up around the northeast. Now, not a solid batch of rain, but some scattered showers around Pittsburgh against Arizona, Washington, New York, and New England all at home with 40s and 50s. And then a little bit drier for Tennessee and Indianapolis at 63 degrees in Nashville. Afternoon games getting wet in Tampa Bay at 73 degrees, and then some scattered showers and some fog in Philly against San Francisco. Low 30s with a few scattered snow showers around Green Bay. Not a big snowstorm there. And looking drier for the Monday night game. That will be Jacksonville taking on Cincinnati. Will be in the mid to low 50s. That's your Week 13 GOATCAST. Mike and Jason will send it back to you.
Name another show that is doing a weather forecast when it comes to fantasy football.
Yeah.
Just name one.
Sam's great.
There's nobody else doing it.
No.
It's just the fantasy GOAT. I love it. Guys, coming up after a short break, it's time for GOAT lineup. Throw me off a building now. That's all I'm going to say. Welcome back, kids. All right, GOAT lineup time. Rule book. This is the time in the show where Jason, you and I, we go head to head. And let me just say this. Do you remember Pavlov's dog?
With the saliva?
Yes,
Yeah.
and the ringing the bell
Yes.
and, getting ready for a treat. Well, every time GOAT lineup comes up, the saliva for pancakes just starts happening for me because at this juncture, kids, ladies and gentlemen at home, I am going to probably lose to this man right over here, Jason Feinberg. The past 2 weeks, just to give a wrap up, it's now 8-4 you, 4-8 me. What do I do? I mean, ring a bell, the stinger of GOAT lineup comes up, and I'm ready to have pancakes.
I even had kind of a pancake lineup this last time, and it didn't score well.
Yeah.
But you've managed to score even worse.
I don't know how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's starting to become difficult. This week, I'm pulling out all the big guns.
Okay.
Pat Mahomes, Rashad White, A.J. Brown, and Travis Kelce. If I don't win this week,
yeah, because here's who
That's
you're up against. Russ Wilson, who I do believe will be in a shootout against Houston. Zach Moss, I think he's going to be good too. But here's where you're going to get me. I'm going with Demario Douglas from New England. He's the #1 receiver. And Juwan Johnson, tight end for New Orleans.
a bunch of no names.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.